Welcome to our final Dean's Huddle of 2022, and we're excited to have an exceptional guest with us today, who both has a background with the University of Maine and is also a huge supporter of our new Maine MBA Academy. So Mark Skinner has joined me here today, and we're going to have a nice conversation here at the Cumberland Club about a few issues. And first we wanted just to start off with, Mark, a bit of your background. You've got some degrees from the University of Maine. You're an athlete, you're a student, you've got a lot of background. Tell us a bit about your experiences at the University of Maine.
Well, born and raised in New York, we had a summer place up here, which is sort of the main connection initially. And I had a good high school athletic career, and I played soccer and ice hockey both at a pretty high level, and started playing ice hockey when I was a lot younger. But then with soccer, I played in this summer league, and the main coach was scouting a kid on another team, and then came over and talked to me about possibly playing at Orono. I got excited about it, and that's how I got to Orono. And then while I was at Orono, I had a terrific time, learned a lot, but I also paid my way through college. So I had a whole bunch of different jobs. I delivered pizza, I delivered rental cars, I was a bouncer at Gambino's. I mean, I was our house manager at the fraternity. I reduced my room and board because of it, but really got engaged, ran the intramural ice hockey program. Made some money doing that, not much, but made a little. And was the Schaefer Beer representative on campus. Got into student government, was a student senator, was an officer at Lambda Chi Alpha, and also did summer orientations for a couple of summers for new freshmen coming in. And graduated in 1973.
Wonderful. Which is ironically the year I was born, 1973. So great year, 1973.
I'll get you back later.
So, yeah. So that's great. And I mean, clearly your entrepreneurial roots started at a very young age, all those things that you were doing. And today you're leading a very large organization, you're CEO. Tell us about your day-to-day today. The students will be very, very interested. Maybe a little bit of the path that got you to this great position.
The path was also a main path. I was started with a connection with Unum, at that time Union Mutual, and they shipped me down to Philadelphia, put me on the sales side. I spent 3 years on the group insurance side, 3 years on the retirement side, and that was really foundational for me. And I went to work for a company today we'd call it a startup, just getting going. I was there at that company for 25 years, came up through the ranks, became the president of that company, president of a broker-dealer, president of an investment advisory business within it. And then that business was eventually acquired by Citigroup, and then left and formed a new business that was definitely a startup because it was our own money. It was myself and one other person. And we formed what today is U.S. Retirement Benefits Partners. There were two of us. We had some ideas, but as I said, we were paying the bills out of our own pockets for the first year. But today, we're over 1,000 employees.
Wow.
We have 31 offices around the U.S. We have 2 locations in India. And our total enterprise value today is about $1 billion.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Talk to us a bit about, an organization of that size, which I have no idea how that would operate in terms of the HR function. So how do you deal with other managers leading groups? A lot of our students are interested in becoming those kind of people as they work up. How do you elevate and think about your VPs, your core leadership team? You've told me before you've done wonderful things, and certainly during the pandemic, to keep your employees happy and engaged and with you. Talk a bit about how you've been successful from the HR side of things.
Well, from that perspective, what we've tried to do is spend a lot of time on transparency and very open communications. I know I talked with you one time before, but every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, my senior team and I gather on a phone call, and we talk about our priorities for the week and our schedules for the week, and that lets us all stay very well communicated. And from there, we expect them to do the same things back out to their teams. And then from the standpoint of our offices around the country, spend a fair amount of time on the road to go out and preach the gospel. Try and make sure the culture is being transferred properly. But people are one of the larger challenges you have in any organization. You can fret about technology, you can straighten out your strategy, you can implement tactics, but at the end of the day, it's your people that are going to really get the job done. So you cannot put enough time into nurturing and growing your leadership team, and then in turn, hopefully that's going through the organization. We go by what we call the inverse pyramid. Okay. So, traditional pyramids like this, all the smart guys are up top like me, and then everything goes downhill. That expression, stuff goes downhill. Right. We actually believe in the reverse pyramid. And my job as sort of a servant leader is to support the management team that is underneath me on paper, but above me, and their job is to support their teams, and their job is to take care of the clients. And if that formula works, then you get a very successful business.
That's great. I know a lot of the students have read a lot about servant leadership, and nice to hear that it works. So when you're thinking about those people that, in your pyramid as they're coming up, what really attracts you to someone who you identify as a future leader or someone you really want to support? What kind of skills and background and experiences as these students kind of build their careers do you really look for in talent?
Well, quite often it's going to vary by role, obviously, because there's certain skill sets you want to have, but fundamentally, you want people who are going to play nice in the sandbox. You want people who are team players. You want people who are self-directed, organized, and have some drive to them. And quite frankly, I like people with sharp elbows. I think it's okay to have sharp elbows in an organization who are willing to say, hey, why are we doing this? This just doesn't make any sense, because it puts pressure on leadership to be able to answer the question, why are we doing this? And from an educational background, we look for people to be mature, to have learned things along the way, but we don't care so much about where they went to school versus how they did in school and how they apply that once they're out of school. And I have a great story. A good friend of mine who was the past president of Deloitte Touche, worldwide, global organization.
Wow,
and so one of my favorite lines is, where do you think Mike went to college? Or graduate school? Well, he went no, actually never went to graduate school. He was head of Deloitte Touche. Where did he go to college? He went to Monmouth State College in New Jersey. He went to a state university. And from there, he rose because he had the interpersonal skills, the listening skills, to engage with a global organization to run it. And I think it's a great story.
That's really good. Thank you. So think about these questions. It's a two-part question. If you wanted to anonymize your answers, whatever, feel free or opt out. But if you think back on your business career, not your personal life, but your business career, what would be the best decision that you think you've made that's allowed your organization to be so successful? And then similarly, what do you think what's one decision that you've made that you kind of regret? Do you think things could have been better from a business perspective,
Sure.
could have worked out better, or you wish you'd taken advantage of? Take your time or opt out if you like, but if you think about those business decisions, which we talk a lot about in our strategy courses, they're so hard, as you know. Give us, if you can.
Yeah, I look at my career in sort of chapters, and the first chapter was very foundational at Unum. The second chapter, when I was with an organization whose name was Copeland, that was the one I was there for 25 years. You'll learn a lot of stuff along the way. Probably the best business decision I ever made was to start the company we started today, and we drove into that because there was massive disruption because of changes in the government regulation. And organizations that were in that space were kind of paralyzed. They were locked into old processes, old thinking, and they just weren't in sync with where the opportunity was. We kind of whiteboarded it, Bob, my founding partner and I, and we said, you know what? Let's go right into that disruption because we can really make some change. And that's what we did. So for me, that was the best decision. But it did take a little bit of time to convince my wife that I had to put all the family chips in the middle of the table in order to fund it and get it going. But she's been a terrific support. In terms of decisions that I regret, I would say that in some acquisitions that we've made, the vision that we saw for those businesses didn't happen. And what we did was we pretty quickly exited those businesses. We sold them out because we couldn't get them to grow. And we've done 51 acquisitions. Wow. And when you do a number of acquisitions, it really comes down to the culture of the leadership, how they fit in, et cetera, et cetera. And you think you check all the boxes, but then when the rubber meets the road, you find out we may not be able to grow this business the way we thought. So very cordially, amicably, we sold the businesses back in every case to the original ownership.
Okay, that's great. Interesting, when you told your best decision case, I was recently at a deal makers conference in Washington, and Mark Cuban was one of the speakers, and he said almost verbatim what you said around what people asked him, what do you look for? And it was disruption.
Yeah.
So now he's into drugs and pharma because it's so expensive. That's brilliant. That's wonderful. We're now going to talk a little bit about the Maine MBA Academy, which we're just thrilled about. I'll introduce that in a second. Then we'll come back and get some of your final words of advice for our students. And so just to give everyone a little bit of background, and they've all heard about it because we've been promoting it, but you and your wife have wonderfully supported this new notion of the Maine MBA Academy, and ask you to tell me a bit about, as you told us, and where this came from. It's really your idea, and it's really now coming to life, and we're very excited about it. So tell us a bit about, maybe go back to when we were on the boat for when we first met, and you had this idea of, and your experience within Academy. What is the Maine MBA Academy in your mind, and what is this going to be for our students?
Well, from my perspective, I saw an opportunity where, using my own experiences, I might be able to drive some thoughts and some ideas to support, I think, some of the challenges the state has. And when you look at the state, and again, I live out of state, I live away now, but I still have very close roots. We still have a home here. The Portland greater community is an incredibly strong economic pod within the state, but there are a lot of other challenges in the state. And the question becomes, how can we retain talent that are coming out of the colleges and universities? How can we create a glide path for people, well, called from the classroom to the boardroom, but also recognize, how do we nurture people to either be entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs? And the entrepreneur part for me was when I was at Unum, when I was at Copeland, we were innovating within those businesses. The entrepreneur piece didn't come until a lot later with its own set of challenges. And what I hope the Academy can do is connect students with people who have been there and done it, but in a way it's not just standing up and rattling off a bunch of stats, but be able to share skills and experiences that someone may be able to draw from. And interestingly enough, when I think about my education at Orono, one of the best classes I took was actually an English class, which was in listening skills. I still use it today, and there are aspects of that different leaders will share and can share, and that's what I hope the Academy will be able to do.
Wonderful, that's great. And this is now coming to life the first week of May here in Portland at our new digs at 300 4th Street with as our capstone class leading in. And so all the things that you heard Mark talk about, that class is going to get to experience, and we're really looking forward to it, and are very thankful to you for supporting in it. And it's going to be something very special for the students. So maybe to wrap us up, this has been great. Think about our students, the MBA students that we have all over the country, a lot in, about 40% in Maine and across and around the world, really, in some cases. And they're mostly working professionals. They're doing their MBAs while trying to climb the corporate ladder, go-getters, ambitious people, much like yourself many, many years ago. What kind of advice would you give for them going forward? What kind of things should they really work on and focus on? And give us some of your wisdom to wrap up.
Well, I think it's going to go back to people.
Yeah.
The people equation is the key equation in any business, whether it's small business or large business. You're not going to be able to do it all yourself. You've got to work with other people, through other people. You have to coach. You have to know when you have to put some discipline in. It doesn't mean you have to scream or yell, but you have to help people understand maybe where they're underperforming, what they need to do to get back to a performance level, and give them time to get there. But fundamentally, you just have to find a way to work with the people around you, and also what I call upstream and downstream. Upstream, in my case, is my board of directors. Downstream is with the rest of the team within the organization. And depending on where you are, you've always got to think about the upstream and the downstream. And are you helping the people downstream to move upwards? And are you communicating with the people upstream about the needs and wants of the business?
Wonderful, thank you. And with that, I think we've had a wonderful discussion with Mark, and it's a wonderful way to end our year of Dean's Huddles and the MBA, and wish you all a great holiday season. And thanks for joining us.